leaders in both parties, specifically these two questions. A, how much are they willing to borrow from each of these countries to finance extension of the Bush tax cuts? And B, whether they will reveal how much U.S. debt is bought by oil-exporting countries to finance extension of the Bush tax cuts. No comment from the Republican Party tonight. Speaker Pelosi, also no comment so far. We have a guest from the White House standing by to join us, and Senate Leader Harry Reid's office replied by email, quote, "Not sure what to say. Needless to say, your question does not lend itself to quick answers. If the choice is borrowing money from these countries or doing nothing, which is the reality we find ourselves in, and that the economy could tank and millions could lose their jobs if we do nothing, which would you choose?" No one has said so far that they will tell the American public how much they'll borrow from whom. Joining us tonight from the White House is Jared Bernstein, Chief Economic Advisor to the Vice President. Thanks for your time tonight.
My pleasure, Sam.
Now, we'll get to the framework itself, but I want to start with who we're borrowing from to finance it. The President mentioned this morning that there's a danger in China financing our debt. Since he raised this issue, how will the White House reveal to the American people how much they end up borrowing from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and other oil-exporting countries to pay for extending these tax cuts?
Well, I think what the President has consistently stressed when he's talked about his opposition to extending the high-end Bush tax cuts is that we're talking about, over 10 years, $700 billion of borrowed money, borrowed from abroad, borrowed from the Chinese, borrowed from oil-producing countries, borrowed from countries with whom who come here to buy our debt with their sovereign funds. Now, you know, one important thing from an economic perspective is that the U.S. remains a very strong investment and the cost of borrowing is low. So the dollar remains the reserve currency, and that's a very positive thing. We are able to finance our debt at low levels. But this is not a plan for long-term budget sustainability.
Well, let's talk about that. Excuse me. Let's talk about that plan for long-term sustainability. In terms of the framework, Republicans argued that this tax cut for up earners is stimulative for the economy. Does the administration agree with the Republicans on this, or do they agree with the CBO chief, Doug Elmendorf, who testified that they aren't?
We very consistently and starkly disagree with the contention that there is anything growth-oriented about those high-end tax cuts. But we are in a place where political compromise is essential if we don't want to let this stalemate result in increases in taxes for middle-class and working families come January 1st. And if you look at this framework that the President decides today, whether it's unemployment insurance, whether it's an important and new and generous payroll tax cut holiday for working families, or whether it's tax credits for low-income people, whether it's business expensing for businesses to expand and so on. In every case, we're talking about a framework that I think is far better than anyone could have expected, given where this debate is in the past few days relative to jobs and incomes.
If we're talking about the middle class, I mean, doesn't this agreement give some political fodder to the incoming GOP Tea partiers and the present Republican Party who are obsessed with the deficit to cut programs which actually stimulate the economy, and for that matter, to attempt to raid Social Security?
Well, first of all, on the Social Security part, I think you're referring to this payroll tax cut.
Well, no, I'm actually referring to the argument by the Deficit Commission that they should cut Social Security. So isn't this giving fodder as you increase the size of the deficit, which will end up hurting those people that supposedly are helped by this?
No, by no means. I mean, first of all, it's interesting. Both fiscal commissions got behind the idea of a payroll tax cut holiday. And by the way, while the payroll tax falls 2% for the employees, this is a tax benefit that workers begin to get immediately through their paychecks, 2% of their salary up to the Social Security cap. Any lost revenue to Social Security would get a credit from general revenue, so that would be replaced.
Well, I'm not suggesting, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not suggesting that Social Security is contributing to the deficit. I'm suggesting that this gives political cover to cut Social Security.
Yeah, look, there is certainly going to be that kind of noise out there, but this president is consistently been about jobs and incomes for middle-class families. And if you look at where this framework is strongest, it's exactly on those issues. Unemployment insurance for folks who, through no fault of their own, face long-term unemployment. There is probably no better way to both help folks make ends meet and stimulate economic growth. We believe this measure will add 600,000 jobs to the economy over the next year. The payroll tax cut holiday adds $1,000 to the paycheck of a $50,000 earning family, $1,500 if that family earns $75,000. Put that on top of the $2,000 they get from making sure their middle class taxes don't go up, and you're actually talking about real money, tax relief pumped back into this economy. We think this is a very positive jobs framework.